Thank you so much for having me. I love being able to show up and pop in from different places in the world, but always finding a grounding seat with the IJS community. So thank you all for receiving me again. And I want to invite us all, if it feels accessible to you, to breathe in and raise your arms up overhead and imagine the light of the sun and something joyous in your life. Just imagine that floating over you. Take a big breath in. And then bring your hands close to your heart and exhale deeply and hold that joy. And I just want us to step into joy for a moment as we enter this Adar. Breathe into that joy space, into your heart. And exhale, you can release your arms to the side. And if there's anything that you feel that you want to share with our group today, anything that's you're currently celebrating, anything that brings you joy, please feel free to drop it in the chat as I'm sharing today, because this is the time of celebration and joy. Welcome to the month of Adar. It is Rosh Chodesh, Chodesh Tov, and something very special about Adar this year is that not only do we have one Adar, but we have two Adars this month, or this year, excuse me, which is so, so special. And maybe you know this, maybe you don't know, but we have leap years in the Jewish calendar. And this is one of those years. And so we get to have a double appearance of Adar. And as our sages say in the Talmud, when Adar arrives, joy increases. We're literally commanded to invite joy in and to be in joy. And I know we could all use a little bit more of that. So if you needed permission or you needed to be commanded, here you go. And in leap years like this, we take all the joy and levity of the month of Adar and extend it for 2 whole months. So we're really, really full of joy this time. And if we take a moment to look back at where we were last month in the month of Shvat, thinking about nature and trees, we planted seeds of intention. And now those seeds are being watered for 59 consecutive days of radiance and enthusiasm. And that's kind of nice to think about the spaciousness in that we don't just have 1 month to feel into that joy and to continue to nurture those seeds, but we have 2 months to infuse joy in. And after, excuse me, and after this month of Adar 1, we continue into our regular Adar, and that's when we celebrate Purim, which is, I believe, like March 17th this month, or excuse me, this year. And we actually have a mini celebration. We do celebrate Purim Katan in Adar 1, but the big celebration where we read the whole Megillah is happening in Adar 2. But I keep talking about this Adar. Why do we even have two Adars? There's a logistical answer and also a spiritual one. So our Hebrew calendar is carefully calculated to honor the lunar cycles. We're lunar people, and also happy Lunar New Year to all those celebrating in the world. And excuse me, but it also has to take 365 days of the solar year into account because we're existing in a lunar world and a solar world. And if we're not thinking about all of these pieces, our holidays would start to shift out of season. And for us as an agricultural society, and also as people who really follow the ways of our ancestors, we want to always make sure that we're celebrating Passover in the springtime. The springtime is when we celebrated our liberation. Passover is always in Nisan. So in order to make sure that we're following that commandment and we're following that calendar, we have to add an extra month in every couple of years. And to be extra specific for those who like the halakha and want to know the facts, that's specifically 7 times within a 19-year calendar or a 19-year cycle. So that's kind of the answering why do we have a leap year? Why do we have 2 months? But why Adar? We have all of these months in when we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, we have all these months that we could have chosen. Maybe Tishrei, when we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, could have been an option, or maybe one of the summer months. But there's a very specific reason why Adar was selected, because it's considered the luckiest month for the Jewish people. Isn't that nice? We have a lucky month. That's so fun. Maybe you have like a lucky jacket or a lucky something in your home. We have a lucky month. And the Talmud even says that this is a really good time to go to court. There's like really good lucky energy around this month. So if you have to do anything like that, schedule it in these next 59 days. It's considered especially joyous, and what a blessing that we get to have this kind of feeling for extra time. And so whenever we have the option this month, excuse me, this Rosh Chodesh is encouraging us to choose joy. Now, I want to take a moment we're in IJS, and so mindfulness is really a big part of who we are as people, and we want to bring this into our daily lives. And I want to ground in the fact that we know that life isn't all just joy all the time. And our mindfulness teachings, Buddhist teachings, and Kabbalistic teachings talk about suffering as being a part of life, and it's there to be a teacher. Suffering offers us so much to learn, but something that Adar can do for us and remind us is that the world is a place that was created from the divine, from creator, from God, from source, whatever the name you love. This world was created as a place for love and joy, and these 2 months can help us remember that. And I want to name that we might not be able to always be in control of our circumstances, but mindfulness, practicing mindfulness and meditation and being here together can remind us that we can control the way that we perceive our circumstances. And I want to take a moment to honor great meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a blessed memory, who recently transitioned into his next chapter. He's no longer with us, but he used to describe the mind as a monkey mind, always running, always going, always taking up space. And through mindfulness and meditation, we can learn to practice and train the mind and come back to a neutral space. And what Adar is reminding us is to not only be in that neutral space, but when we're ready, after we've sat with any feelings that we need to sit with, usher ourselves into a place of joy and harmony, to really invite that in and tap into that pulse of human experience, that frequency of love and joy that we so know and love, whenever we can, to go back into that. We can also think about it with the seasons too. Things are starting to get a little bit warmer and a little bit lighter, and let that be a reminder of the lightness that we might have. Excuse me. I want to share, just to bring us home, on how to bring joy in this month, even when things feel hard or even when things don't feel joyous. Our perception can be really powerful here. And what I love about the fact that we have Rosh Chodesh every month is that it holds a theme that can continue to ground us. And I want to share a quick personal story, a real life practice that I'm continuously working on, of something that was really difficult for me, but through my mindfulness practice, I've been able to find ways to come back to the joy. And just a trigger warning, this has to do with a car accident. This was in October, just last year. I was involved in a car accident, and it was very scary, and it was very hard on my body. I feel so blessed that I was able to walk out of the situation and breathe out of the situation, and just so many things that I was grateful for. But as somebody who's a yoga teacher and a person who loves movement all the time, I had to accept the reality that I had a spine injury and a soft tissue injury that I had to mend and rest. And so when my doctor told me for months, you can't exercise, that was something that was really hard to sit with. And so this is where, and I spent some time feeling angry, sad, grieving all of the things that I wasn't able to do, and I sat with that for a while. That was part of my practice at the time. But what I was able to do through my meditation practice, I got to sit with, well, if I can't move, there are different things that I can be able to do. And then I remembered the power of the Shemitah year. And the situation, even though it was difficult at the time, it opened me to what was possible. How could I lean into this Shemitah? And how could I find joy perhaps in what this situation is giving me? How can I restore my body? And so what I share this as an example of how this could have been something that I stayed miserable about for the last 4 months. But I sat with the feelings, breathed through the feelings, and then found a way to come back to joy and recognizing I might not be able to control the reality of what my body needs right now, but I can understand that this is an invitation to restore, to rebuild, to reconnect, and find joy in this new relationship that I have with stillness and with healing. And so I offer that as a way to even think about how might the Shemitah year, this time of restoration, intersect with this theme of joy that we're holding for almost for 2 months. How can we protect our joy? How can we create spaciousness in our schedules to let joy in? And what might we practice saying no to so that we can center joy more in our lives? So as we lean into our meditation today, I want to leave you with this, that Adar, the Hebrew word for Adar, is associated with the Hebrew word Adir, which means strength. And may we find strength in our joy, in the healing power of joy within us. Excuse me. That there are so many moments of joy available to us if we choose it. And so with that, I want you to find a comfy place to sit in your meditation for this morning. And begin by breathing deeply into your belly, filling yourself up with joy, with Adir, with strength, all the way in. And exhaling to release. And when you feel called to and prepared to gently close your eyes, noticing the rise and fall of your belly. And finding joy in your meditation this morning. And wherever you are, beginning to notice your breath, taking a gentle inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth, even wiggling your toes and fingers, gently inviting your senses back to you, becoming aware of your breath in your chest and belly. And when you're ready, gently bringing your palms together in front of your heart, and begin to rub them back and forth, creating some warmth, sparks of joy between your fingers. And then slowly separate your hands, and you'll place the inside of your palms over your eyes. And then slowly flutter your eyes open to gently bring yourself back into our communal space together. Taking a moment to come back and welcome yourselves into Adar, this incredible time of extra joy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kimmy Dueñas. Thank you so much for leading us so beautifully. We continue our practice and we seal it as we do every day by offering an opportunity for those in mourning, or if you're observing a yard site, to recite the Kaddish, or if it's your custom to participate, you're invited to do so and to put the name or names of anyone that you're honoring or holding in your heart today in the chat box. If you're not reciting Kaddish today, you can continue your practice simply by staying present for yourself and for all those who are, and by offering a compassionate support for those who are reciting Kaddish, who are invited to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words together. Yit gadol, yit gadash, shmei ma dibra B'chayaton yomechon, yeh cultivate el, gala, Ishmei Shalom B'Romav, Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Amru, Amen.
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 And once again, thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. Thanks to our teacher for today, Kimmy Dueñas, and looking forward to some conversation about that beautiful teaching and an opportunity for us to reflect together on the practice and hopefully bring it into the rest of our day and our months of Adar coming up. We want to thank, of course, Adi Stein, who holds our Tech Mishkan so beautifully every day. And we want to thank our sponsors for today, Eileen Bernzar, Lani Nell, and Nina Mizrahi, who sponsored our practice to honor their friend and teacher, and our friend Chazan Toby Luhayman. Mazal Tov Toby, receiving her honorary doctorate today from the Jewish Theological Seminary. Really wonderful to celebrate that milestone with you. For those who are able and interested, you're welcome to stay on. If you have a question for Kimmy about today's teaching, you can put it in the chat box. We'll keep an eye on that. If you're leaving us, we'll hope you join us tomorrow. Sarah Waxman of At the Well will lead us in practice tomorrow, and on Friday, Genevieve Greinitz will lead us as we sit into Shabbat together. So please join us then, or watch the recording as you'd like on our YouTube channel. And we hope to see you soon. And for those who are staying on, again, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box. We'll keep it on. So Kimmy, first, I just want to compliment you. Of course, we get to see a whole wonderful variety of teachers every day, and it's always wonderful, each person in their own way. But there's this sense of, when somebody exudes in their being the practice, and you can really say, I'll have what she's having, give me some more of that. And I think I probably speak for many people here to say that it comes through, it comes through the Zoom. And thank you for sharing not just the teaching, but thank you for teaching your being and teaching through your being. So thanks for that. I'd love to dig in a little bit to this topic of experiencing joy, and especially as you were describing it, how do we get in contact with our joy when we're going through personal struggles like you were describing, or just the state of the world, or whatever is going on in our lives or our world, where we think it's just not, either not appropriate, or we can't get to it, or it just seems far away. Thinking about it a little bit, because I was in a session last night, a mindfulness workshop with one of my kids, actually. You would appreciate this, and who's 13. And the teacher said, when you can't feel, you really can't feel anxiety in the present. Anxiety comes up when we're in the past or in the future. But when we're present in the moment, I don't know if you can't feel anxiety, but anxiety is much less present. And that was in my head. I was thinking about the connection with simcha, with joy, whether the absence of anxiety, when we cultivate the ability to be in the present, helps us access joy. And that's part of the practice, right? In a way, it's a joy practice. But then I started thinking, well, I often conjure up joy, or I don't know if I generate joy, but I feel joy by remembering past moments of joy, or by anticipating future moments of joy, right? More the former than the latter, like revisiting, wasn't that great? This kind of nostalgia about wonderful moments, which take me out of the present. So I want to play around with that a little bit. What do you think about that? But just to start with the question that you were dealing with, which was experiencing joy when we're going through hard stuff.
Yeah.
Like.
That's a really great question, Mark, and I think it's kind of fun to do that exercise in your mind of time traveling between past and future. And
Mhm.
it's true, when I think about things that make me joyful, it might be about a past thing. Sometimes it's a present thing, like looking at my cat in the present moment, and she brings me joy. But something that's really supported me in this time traveling is to kind of think of life as one big school and one
Mhm.
big lesson.
Mhm.
And particularly around things that might be hard, if it's with a person or with a situation, I look at that as a teacher. What a great teacher I had. And I don't discount the things that were hard. I definitely hold space for when I need to be sad or angry or whatever it might be. But I share this because it's helped me to be more present by observing the world as a great institute of learning for myself. I see as everything as being part of my curriculum, and everything being for me, as realistic as a way as possible. And that helps me be present, because if there's something in real time that might be occupying space in my heart or in my mind, I ask that question: what is this teaching me now? What might
Mhm.
this inform down the line? And we might not all have all of the answers, but for me personally, that's kind of helped me see where it's helped me gain control of my perspective of the situation again. It makes it less big. Um,
Can I ask
or
you a
it,
question? I can ask you
yeah.
a question about that. How long does it take you to shift from "oh no" to what you're describing as that this is my teacher?
It's, I think it ranges, like maybe depending on the weight of whatever it might be, but it can take anywhere from a couple minutes to maybe a couple hours or days. But I've found it to be something that's it's like a hack, I guess you could say, because it does take a relatively short amount of time. I've noticed with myself, my turnaround time being stuck in something is about 3 days, and I think everyone kind of has their own time and tolerance with that,
Hmm.
according to your life experience and all of that. But for me, it's generally a couple, yeah, just around that period of time, because um, I think I've been through enough things in my life, in my many 31 years, um, that there have been some hard things that have tested me, but I've found through mindfulness practice, through therapy as well, I've found tools that have really helped me ground in here and now, and help me separate what I can control from what I can't control, and that has very often helped me kind of come back to the present moment, into what am I able to manage, and what do I need, really coming back to the need of this moment. Oh, you're muted, Mark.
Yep. That sort of is what you just said reminds me of that adage about pain and suffering, that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional, that, that period of time, which is just, as human beings, we're just not, it's not, maybe the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh or others immediately can go into that kind of place. But for 99.99% of the rest of us, there is that time between, the resistance to what's
Mhm.
happening and the transition from, a judgment and an
Exactly.
opinion to curiosity. What am I learning from this?
Right.
And that, to the extent to which we extend that period, that's the suffering, right? We prolong
Exactly.
our suffering by
Exactly.
staying in that place.
That's exactly it. And that transition time is really critical. And I encourage everyone to find what works for you. I found what works for me when I'm recognizing that I'm sitting with a hard thing, a hard emotion, a hard situation. I'll create that space. Maybe I go for a walk, I call a friend, I book an appointment with my therapist, I'll make something really delicious, or I'll treat myself to a really great latte. Whatever it might be, I'll purposely create something to hold myself during that transition time, to mark that I have acknowledged this, that this is
Mhm.
a real thing. Maybe I'll journal about it, I'll sing, I'll dance, I'll do yoga, whatever. But creating that space to feel it, and then transition into what is my plan of action, where am I going now, so as not to prolong that suffering as you've described, because at a certain point it is a choice not to take us out of our pain, and our pain should always be validated, but at a certain point we get to be in charge of our fate with that situation.
Mhm. It's also kind of a choice, I guess, to opt out of victimhood, right? By
Hmm.
which has its own payoff, right? So, like, I might see that I have a choice not to prolong my suffering, but sometimes it can feel, what am I going to talk about? if I,
Right.
if I can't fetch, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
so I have
I
to be mindful of that. Go ahead.
totally. Well, I'm just going back to the car accident situation, because there was a solid week where I was just like miserable, and I didn't know what to do with those thoughts and feelings. And I did all the things. I tried to meditate. I was reading, or doing different things to put my mind in other places. But when I started to move through this transition, I started to think, okay, what could help me exist beyond this experience right now? And so I started to ask questions. I started to reach out to people who I knew who had also been in an accident, and I asked them about what they did and what helped them, and hearing them talk about their recovery story, or even the things that they're still facing and being challenged with, it helped me. And so I share that to highlight the power of community, and also getting curious, because it took me out of my own experience and brought me into the world of someone else. And then I started to think, well, if they could find their strength, then I can find mine. And if they can find a way to navigate this, I can find my way out of this. And then it suddenly made this thing that was so
Mm,
right here. It made it
mm,
feel less scary. And then I started to transition into what can I do? I can strengthen the muscles in my brain and in my heart right now. And I can channel. And I started to channel my meditations around healing and imagining all the vertebrae of my spine recovering. And that's been hugely powerful. So it's moving into, for me, and I think for a lot of us, this message is about moving from powerless into powerful in
mm.
whatever way we can make that happen.
Well, it's a great example and beautifully described. Thank you for that, and thanks for sharing your process with that. Um, but that, so let's talk a little bit about joy, and I also want to leave a couple of minutes for you to talk about your new venture because I think people should know about that.
Hmm.
Um, it's one thing to alleviate the suffering, right? And come to this place of curiosity, as you're describing, right? Go just to be in that stance of being a learner. Everything is an opportunity to learn, and everyone and everything is my teacher.
Hmm.
Um, how do you experience joy? You know, and part two of that question is, how do you experience joy alongside and at the same time as other feelings too, whether it be grief, anger, shame, accessing that?
Sure. The
A
biggest
little
thing,
question.
yeah, no problem. The first thing that comes to mind is I don't know if I've shared this in previous meditations we've had, but I used to live with a lot of anxiety, actually. I found mindfulness and meditation because I was a very highly anxious person. And that was looking back, and what kind of came to a head was I was in college and my grandfather had passed away, and he was such an anchor of safety for me. And in that moment, it just felt like my world had crumbled. And so I kind of went into this period of time that was very difficult, but it led me to mindfulness practice. And that was over 10 years ago. And here I am now. And I'm very proud of my college self for taking those steps. But to answer your question, what I've learned in that whole journey is to acknowledge that all of those feelings are part of me. And when I
Mm,
can, even when I'm feeling stressed or anxious or angry, grieving, whatever it might be, when I can remember that it is part of me, it's valid. We're not just singular and one-dimensional beings. When I can remember that joy and excitement and happiness and peace and fulfillment and harmony are also a part of me, it can help balance all of those things as well. And it's not about, and we already know this. It's not about getting rid of the joy and suppressing it, because that doesn't serve us either. But I can remember, a lot of times I lean on the temporary nature of those things,
mhm.
and remember that there is wholeness in me and there is joy and light that I will always come back to no matter what. This is just a temporary
Yeah.
thing.
We don't have time to plumb that, but it does sound like, and I see that in the chat, there's conversation here about, joy, not in the sense of, ecstasy, or that kind of, what we might think of as being like a high, but something closer to what you're describing, which is that, like you said, a wholeness and a peacefulness of being able to be with things as they are, we could understand that as simcha doesn't mean necessarily happy in the kind of popular sense. Why don't you take a couple of minutes, Kimmy, to tell us, about this new project?
Sure.
Get us
Yeah.
down to El Salvador, please.
Yes, absolutely. I'll take us mentally there. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the beautiful things coming through the chat, and to Isabel, I'm sorry for your loss. You shared about your spouse,
Mm,
and I'm really sorry for your loss and that loneliness that you're feeling. And something that just comes to mind as an offering is to do things that remind you of the joy that you two shared, as much as possible, and sharing in memories with other folks, and just sending you lots of strength there. Um, so, speaking of joy, my the last year of my life has been a clarifying time on what brings me joy and what makes sense and what is also healing for myself as well as my ancestors. And so that brought me down to El Salvador, where I've just been living for the last 3 months. And I'd been before, but this was a very intentional time of seeking ancestral healing and knowledge of my identity. And I've always had a dream to lead yoga retreats somewhere. And of course, during the pandemic, that was not on the top of my mind. But as the world is healing and where things are getting better and there's safe ways to gather, I'm planting seeds and I've laid the groundwork and I've found the place and the space to lead yoga retreats in El Salvador and learning spaces, which is so exciting. And there's so many things about this that I'm thrilled about, but more than anything, it's about bringing people to my home and supporting the people there that have so much love to give. And there's such a rich history of life and knowledge and civilization in El Salvador. So I'm excited to combine all of the things that I love and care about and support the people that I know and love in a meaningful way. And so I'm hosting my first yoga retreat in April. And then from there, it's going to look like a few different moments during different weeks during the year where I'll host retreats and hopefully collaborate with some really great friends and partners in the Jewish world to bring some healing and restoration to folks together.
Well, the joy is contagious. It's just even nice to hear you talk about it. So thanks for sharing that, and
Sure.
Hatzlacha Rabbah, like lots of success with that.
Uh,
I put the link to Kimmy's website in the chat box if
Wonderful.
people want to learn more. And we're a little bit over time, so let's end here. But thank you so much, Kimmy, for teaching and sharing so beautifully, and a lot of appreciation for what you offer, what you've offered today, and each time you've been with us. And looking forward to the next time you get to lead us. And thanks to Adi, thanks to our three sponsors for today, Eileen, Nina, and Lonnie, and Mazel Tov again, Toby. Hope to see you later. I hope to be on the Zoom for that convocation at JTS. And thanks to Adi, and most of all, of course, to all of you for being here and for your incredible devotion to this practice and this community. So many blessings, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Sarah Waxman.
Beautiful. Thank you.